Future-Proof is sponsored by Learn Smart Academy, online revision courses for GCSE and A-Level. All your revision in one place, organised for you, interactive and game-changing. Hello and thank you for joining me, Sarah Hopwood, as I continue this Future-Proof series looking at how to. And in the last programme I'd started talking about how to negotiate, and my opening comments were all of us are negotiating one way or another. If you think you're not, just remember childhood or watch people around you, and you'll see children negotiating all the time. So if you're not proactively doing it now, you certainly have done it at some point in your early years. So I want to encourage you, if you lack confidence in negotiating, if you think you're not very good, please speak yourself up. Say that you're kind of getting stronger, you're getting better, and I'm hoping that some of the tips that I'm sharing can show you how to negotiate effectively. And in the last programme I did talk about Brexit and those negotiations that went on recently, and listening in the press as to all the different discussions and how things were going. And in my head, I didn't think for one moment that a deal would not be done. What I was seeing, and this is just from my perspective, I was watching tactics play out, including posturing, withholding, and all those things. I saw them as tactics. So at the end of the last programme, I was talking about the red and blue style of negotiation. So I'd already covered that preparation was absolutely key, and part of that is choosing your team, preparing your list of wants, but also choosing your style and whether it's going to be collaborative and cohesive kind of listening and talking and sharing, if you like, style, or whether it's adamant, dictatorial, almost abrasive, if you like, and this is what we want, this is why we want it, and you're going to give it to us, how much is it going to cost kind of idea. And all I was saying is, if so, the red is abrasive and the blue is more sort of cohesive. And if you are naturally a blue negotiator, all I'm saying is if the other team are going in red, you won't achieve anything if you go in blue. So your skills would be to go in with red and match them. Be assertive, be good listeners, repeat back. If you know about neuro-linguistic programming, then use some of that mirror and matching, and then using those skills you can move them from the red more into a blue open area of discussion. And so this is how I left the last programme, and this is what I'm picking up now, is the difference between the red and the blue styles. And I've had it up for you just a while now, this slide, so that you've been able to just look at the different styles there. Okay, so I want to move on now to power play, and the object of the power play is to create a context for the talks to occur, just the same as a war creates a context for the peace talks to occur. For you to talk while they fight is as good a way to lose as anything, and that's really, really true. And it makes me think of so often when we think we're listening, we're actually preparing to speak. But if you're in an argument, then the saying is that if you're supposedly listening, but you're not, you're actually reloading your gun. So we have to be really, really careful about showing empathy. That's the end of the day. People will keep on barking until they feel that they've been understood. And the best way you can let them know they've been understood is not just nodding your head and smiling, but actually repeating back what they've said, giving them the chance to change it in one way or another. And once they know they've been heard, then their ears will then be open to listen, perhaps more readily anyway, to what you might be saying. So there are barriers though. And The barriers can be threats. People can make threats, and we certainly saw that in some of the Brexit discussions. Ignore those threats. Again, I see them as tactics, so it helps. I don't think we should blindly ignore them, because sometimes there's a message in there, but do see it as a tactic. Speak slowly and maybe quietly, because again, that helps people listen to you, and respond quickly and negatively to any redder behaviour. So if somebody really tries to turn up the energy even more and move into even more red, then why don't you actually call a break on the meeting? Why don't you say, should we not convene later? And it's a bit like letting them know. It's a bit, I know that people who work on the telephones have been told this. If you keep shouting at me, then I'm going to have to go and you'll have to phone back again. And you just keep calmly, quietly, being assertive. And if somebody does try to go redder, then you move away from it as best you can. And if they insist, then in some way or another, back off, because it's going nowhere and you're certainly not going to get what you want. There are always going to be barriers to you, feeling confident about the negotiation process. We often defer things that we're frightened of, and we'll come up and say, well, we don't have time for this, we don't have money. The policy and the patience is that self-sabotaging. There should be a negotiation policy, particularly if it's a regular skill needed in your business. There should be training on it. People should be equipped. I said right at the beginning about tactics, just recognise things as tactics. If you do that, it stops you putting in an emotional response. So I have definitely found that this has served me very, very well. Once I understood the difference between somebody just saying what they think or feel, but actually then identifying it as a tactic, it really does enable you to stand right back and move away emotionally. Questions are very, very important, and it enhances the two-way communication. It should always be two-way. If you're speaking, you're not earning. If you're speaking, you're not gaining much ground. So, it's that great saying, isn't it? 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in proportion. So understanding, showing that you understand the other party is very, very important. But what do questions look like? There are direct questions, and that is more like the yes-no. The indirect question, or the overhead question, you could almost call that a rhetorical question sometimes. The yes-no, yes, it features there. To me, that very often does sit with a direct question. There are few direct questions that don't involve a yes or no, even if it has an explanation behind it. A leading question is when you're giving half the answer in the question. In other words, you're leading them to almost finish a sentence for you. A reflective question, that is very much tied up with emotionally intelligent thinking and neuro-linguistic programming and even mindfulness. A reflective question is like, let's just pause where we are, reflect what's being said and done, and it also gives an opportunity to people to say, no, that's not what I meant, or maybe to even give greater clarity. But it really is in the presence a summary of where we are now and what you're doing, because it's a question you're asking. It's clarification, is are we all singing from the same hymn sheet at the moment? And an attitude question. Attitude is king. And if you are seeing an attitude question of, let's say there's jealousy in there somewhere, somebody stamping their feet up because there's jealousy, there's resentment, could be revenge. By finding an attitude question to ask, you might pick up that actually there's a spirit of revenge in the room, and that really helps you not just in your planning and your thinking, but also what do you now say moving forward to maybe sidestep it, avert it, or address it head on and just say, what is going on here? I thought we were here because everybody wants peace in this company, but I'm picking up some revenge here. So how are we going to move through that to an agreed outcome? So listening, as I said, is absolutely key here. Active listening is very important. If you're not actively listening, people are looking at you sideways, wondering if you're listening. They think you're distracted. But we also need to understand that there are visual thinkers and learners and listeners, auditory and also kinesthetic. So, depending on their preferred style, people will listen in different ways. So we also have to be very, very careful about interrupting, about the role of emotions. Remember, emotion is energy in motion. You can see an emotional response by just seeing a frown or a flicker of the eyebrow. Read them, look out for them, because it can often show whether you've hit a nerve or whether somebody's resonated with what is being said. Be careful, don't start in the middle. If you often look back at misunderstandings, it's because somebody's started a conversation right in the middle. Did Bob call? And somebody's thinking, Bob, who's Bob? What did Bob? Can't think. Rather than start at the beginning. And just be careful. Sometimes people don't understand, and if you don't know, then you don't know, and that ties up with the clarifying, reflective questions. Make sure that everybody is moving at the same pace, and if there's any misunderstanding or blockages, go back and re-clarify or make the change that needs to be changed so that you can keep moving forward together.